General Protocol Spaces, Banking on Freedom.
Hey, I think this is going to be 90% a conversation between Jonathan and Giviz, because Giviz, you guys have been working very hard on this digital identity and sorting out, all the way from the kind of idea stage or the stage you were on EVM, and then how to do it on cash tokens in abstract, and then more detailed, and now it's getting like really down to the detailed setup for it. I really like to see it, and Jonathan has looked into it in a lot of detail, and he has a lot of notes and things to ask you and talk about. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that. Could you give us, I think that's going to be the main topic of this discussion. So I hope you guys are interested in digital identity and non-custodial digital identity, because that's what we're about. No nonsense, no custodial stuff here. So Giviz, could you maybe give us an introduction overall, what you're trying to accomplish, again, for anybody who hasn't heard it before, and then the update on what's going on now?
For sure. So you can hear me? You can hear me well?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, awesome. So the idea at first was to use EVM to make a decentralized identity system. But since our first discussion, we realized that it wasn't going to be viable. So we explored the different solutions with tokens. And we ended up with the first proposal I made last week. So I think it's probably better if we go with Jonathan's question and not me explaining the whole thing at once, because it's probably going to be a bit messy otherwise.
Well, that would work if Jonathan were here, but I think he's still busy getting set up ready. So, Jonathan, are you available yet?
Yes.
I don't think he's available yet. So could you just go? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, everyone.
Hey.
Did you hear what Giviz was saying, Jonathan?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, overall, I was saying that we studied a way to make the decentralized identity system with a cash token rather than EVM. And instead of me going to the Word document and trying to explain everything, I think it's better if we have a conversation, and maybe you can start by explaining what you liked or what you really didn't like about the way we thought about the subject.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. So I'll start with what I like. I like that you can use a token and BCMR to achieve mutability of your identity or payment data, so that you are in control of what data is there, and others can very easily detect changes and update as needed. I really like the idea of the business card transaction, and in particular the ability to send someone all they need to get started. Like, I'll send you a transaction to your wallet to start your wallet up, and that contains enough for you to register your own identity, and you now have me as a trusted friend in your friend book or whatever. So those are great. I really like those. What I'm kind of less happy about is the overall complexity of the setup. Like, there's so many moving parts, and there's so many things that really need detailed answers in order to make sense. So,
can you elaborate on one, maybe? Yeah.
So for example, you have this this part where you segregate people into groups based on risk at some point, and how do you determine which person belongs to which group? Who has the ability to make that decision?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's more like segregating usernames than people. to me, it's not the same thing. It's not the person behind the username, but the ability to be registered, or at least to be listed, because you can be registered with username as there is no control over this, but the ability to be shown as a registered identity to users inside a wallet. I think some usernames should have more filter to pass than others. But it's not about the people behind the username. For me, there is a distinction here. I agree that it's not easy to say this username is risky, this username is not risky. It will be more about looking how this username is used in the Web2 space. The example I always take is like if someone wants to be listed in a wallet when a user search for Binance, obviously you don't want to list any username that has been registered first as the contact you are going to show to this user. So for this username, we should have more, at least a layer of control. But for the vast majority of username, I think it's not necessary, or at least less necessary. If that makes sense?
Kind of. So the question is, who is that entity that has that control?
I would say each registry is the entity who has that control, because the registry is pointing to the token ID. So one registry can say, no, I don't want to link your token ID as Binance to my users, but the user can still add it manually, or maybe another registry will link it. So it's more, it's kind of like a DNS service in a way, but there will be many services like this managed probably by the wallet providers. So the way I see things.
So if you have multiple registries and they have different rule sets for what they define as a risky user, they have different rule sets for whom they are going to like declare to be Binance or things like that, doesn't just that undermine it, so that one user talking to another user say, oh, just use Binance, and when you go to the other wallet and like they type in Binance and suddenly it's a different Binance, it's someone else?
Yeah, but I think in a decentralized way, you don't have any other manner to fix this, unless there is someone that will say, no, I agree to give you the handle Binance. In this system, the wallet you use and already trust is the one making the filtering for you, or you can change it in the setting and use another registry, or maybe you can use 2 or 3 registries and combine the results.
Right. You trust
but
your own wallet.
Either you don't have any
sensible thing to do, because your wallet manages your keys and therefore your money. Right? So
yeah,
that trust I accept. But 2 different users trusting 2 different wallets, how do they, in an effective and good way, communicate who they are talking about in such a system if the wallets do different decision making?
That's why I added the layer of where you can have, for example, binance.paytaka.com. If paytaka.com is the wallet you use and it's acting at the registry you are using. So if we want to refer to the same user, we would use the full username, which is the username that is in the commitment, and the registry we are looking at to get the token ID.
So, okay.
Mostly like you use an email address. You can be...
assume that me and my buddy, Eric, we are first-time non-technical users, and we have been introduced to this thing, and we downloaded 2 different wallets because we want to see how things work. And in my wallet, I type in Binance, and what happens is that my wallet provider's registry thinks that Binance.mywallet is the right entity for Binance, and everything seems to be working for me. So I tell my other buddy here, that's cool, how easy this is. Just send some money to Binance and it's just gonna work. And he types in Binance and he gets a match and something is shown and he sends money there, but it doesn't match the expectation. It's not the same thing as it is for me. How do if a wallet shows names without having the distinction or the namespacing by default, which is one of the things you've highlighted and pointed out here that there's a benefit that you can do it without these things. Then how do you solve that difference in interpretation?
No, I agree with you. Maybe it's necessary to even link the full username, like, for example, Binance at paytaka.com. Maybe just for some groups of username, or maybe for all username, more like you will display an email address, and you can be Binance at gmail.com, which will be different, for example, from Binance at yahoo.com. And with the full link to the username plus registry, there is no conflict of, we have to be talking about the same thing, because this full link is linking to one token ID only.
Yeah, but as a new user who's introduced to this system, who does a search for something popular, say a charity donation or something, and just type in the name for it and find it in their wallet, how will they know that in order to convey the correct payment information to their friend, who might not have the same registers in their wallet, how does this new user who only sees the name of the charity pop up in a drop-down list, how do they know how to convey the full identity to their friend to ensure that there's no difference in interpretation?
If I'm using one wallet that is not paytaka.com, for example, and you give me the username Jonathan at paytaka.com, my wallet has to look into the paytaka.com registry and not inside its own wallet registry, because the registry is part of the username.
Yeah. So under that circumstance,
so each
your
wallet
wallet
has to
can't
be
show Jonathan, it can't show Binance, it can't show like some charity organization. It has to show the distinctive part of it that says at Paytaka. Otherwise, you open up yourself for a situation where different users, by virtue of having different software, would possibly interpret things differently.
Yeah, I agree with you. With the part where you look for someone, it's probably necessary to show the full link. Once you choose to add someone into your contact book inside your wallet, now you want to reference probably to him by name or by username without the full link. You already choose this one, so you don't need to display the full link everywhere because it's pretty long. But when you make the decision, this is the person I want to add, yeah, you probably need the full link. I agree with you.
All right. So, okay, then there are still plenty of advantages to this scheme, even though this one advantage seems to be lost when you can't have just a username because you can't communicate it unless you're communicating it through a digital means, like by sending a business card, great thing, or by sending them the address through email or NFC or Bluetooth or whatever digital transfer where the actual distinction is kept. And I also agree that once you have added a contact to your wallet's address book, sure, your wallet can, of course, choose to show you that without the distinctions in the future, because it knows that this is something you trust and you have chosen to add. So that's a good thing. How do we get all wallets to behave the same way with regards to this?
Could I interrupt before answering that?
Yeah.
And ask, because we never really got for the listeners, we got straight into the details. Would it be possible to, don't forget that question, like maybe write it down or something, and rewind a little bit and I don't know, give us maybe like walk through what does creating a digital identity here look like, in the ideal case with the current understanding.
Okay. So in the current case, you will create by yourself a non-fungible token with the username you want inside the commitment, and this token will be mutable. And when you create this token, you will also create the BCMR for your identity. So now anyone that follows this token this token ID can have your identity inside his wallet. So you just have to.
For people listening, the BCMR is like a metadata where you could provide all kinds of information about yourself and your identity, or whatever your identity is. You could put all kinds of things there, whatever it is you want to put, standard information or your own special information. Is that right, Givis?
Yeah, it's right.
Okay.
One nice thing about this system is as you have a mutable NFT for your identity, you can create new NFTs from the same token category that are non-mutable with the same username, and you can send them to, for example, to me. And my wallet could receive this like an invitation, like your business card, to be added inside my contact list. So now I can follow your identity in an easy way. What we are talking about just before, it's more the other direction. How can you here in this chat give me verbally your username in a way that if I enter it in my wallet, I'm sure 100% to get the correct token ID and start to follow the right person.
Right.
That's where we need some kind of registry, like when you tap a domain name in your browser, there is something that does the lookup to give you the IP address, and you want to really be sure it's the correct IP address.
Okay. And if I can ask about a different aspect of it. So I think the original intent here that you guys started with was, making a practical digital identity that doesn't pretend the custodial world doesn't exist, right? It recognizes that the custodial account world exists and tries to do an initial bridge from custodial known accounts or established accounts into non-custodial. Is that still the case? Are you still?
No, it's not the case, because once we talked about it like 2 weeks ago, I realized that there is no way to make this in a fully decentralized way. There is a way to reduce centralization, for example, with the registry model that, in my opinion, should be handled by wallet providers, because users already trust the wallet. So if the wallet set up the registry, you can also set up the private key. So it's the same trust. There is no more trust to be added if this is the same entity that is managing the two things. But I think in the new system, anyone can register any username. It's more about how do you get added into the registries. If tomorrow I register the name Binance, will Paytaka add me into the registry? Probably not.
Okay. And then could you, I know you guys discussed it in more detail, but could you say at a high level how that differentiation works? Because some people may not be already familiar with cash accounts or the other things that already exist. So how do you differentiate these? Like you said, if you create Binance tomorrow, like how does that work?
If you create Binance tomorrow, if I am the wallet provider, I'm going to look out is it a risky username? Yes, of course, it's one of the most risky username in crypto. Can you give us some proof that you own this brand? Do you own the domain name or this kind of stuff? And if so, yes, we are going to link from, for example, Binance the wallet domain name to your token ID. That's the only thing we are going to do. We don't control your identity. We cannot change your information. All of this is done with your NFT identity. But if you create an identity for a random username, something with no risk involved, you're going to be registered from the get-go. Does that answer your question?
Interesting. Okay, so it puts a lot of weight on the wallet provider to be.
Yeah, but in a way, they already have the way to protect your privacy. And imagine with the template system you are discussing on the last podcast, they have a lot of ways to not set this up and integrate it properly so that you know what you are going to sign. And for me, it's the same thing. They have to not link to identities that are risky and let you send funds to something. But you could also add another layer where it's easy to add an identity and start to follow someone. But the minute you want to send them funds, now you have to provide your wallet the right and say, yeah, I checked that it's them, and I'm okay to send funds to this address, for example.
Okay. Yeah, I don't quite understand how you would expect a wallet provider to have global knowledge of what's dangerous address versus well-known. I mean, random.
You mean usernames?
Yeah.
Or if you have multiple wallets, how you can expect each of them to all behave in the same way in this manner, as there is no enforcement?
You would have to know who the other wallet person, what wallet they're using. Oh yeah, that seems strange. Huh.
Yeah, in a way, you need a way to convert a username to a token ID. So it's one proposition. Maybe it's not the good one. Maybe there is a better way.
Okay.
I'm already here.
So,
it's still brainstorming. So
yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's very difficult. I remember the first time you sent me a message and you're like, "Hey, we're working on this," and I was like, that's gonna dominate your whole thoughts. Solving this identity problem is a huge
I agree.
question.
In a way, it's very necessary because each time you show an address to a normal person, you are almost lost.
Yeah.
It's very hard for them. They are so used to things like email address to reference to people or phone number maybe, but like addresses, it's way too difficult.
But on the flip side, maybe you know already, but just for the audience who might be a bit younger, email was exactly the same. It used to be email was exclusively for just the nerdiest of nerds. It just wasn't used by normal people in any way, anywhere. And then it kind of slowly got into academia and then business. And then later, like they made a movie about email because it was like a social thing. And yeah, people just did not comprehend email addresses because nobody used the @ mark or like dots in their names. It was all very foreign to people. Domains were very foreign. People didn't understand domain names and TLDs and stuff like that. So, but all that, people got it. They get it. Once it's useful to them, they get it. So I think as long as the standards are reasonable and not just hugely distant from what people are already using, I don't think there'll be a problem. But the question is whether the thing that we're making is useful or not.
Even before that, people used to remember phone numbers. Holy crap.
Yeah, phone numbers are way harder.
Yeah, for sure. I also think if you look at, for example, at domain names today, it happens that you can go to a domain name and it has been hijacked by someone, for example, forget to renew it, and it has been hijacked by a scam somewhere. Usually you have a way, for example, if you have LastPass on your computer, that is going to tell you, no, you cannot log in because it's not there is something wrong with some certificate or something. There is something that is protecting you, the user, to just log into the bad website in a way. And in my opinion, it's kind of the role of the wallet to protect the user. It's also what the template system is doing. It's trying to prevent you, to explain to you what you are going to do, and to prevent you from doing something that you probably don't want to do. But I agree that I put a lot of work on the wallet provider.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess someone has to do the work.
Yeah. I maybe I'm sure but people like Jonathan and myself, I won't speak for others, but we're kind of in love with systems that can't be squatted. That just by default you cannot squat names or anything like that. I'm kind of in love with those.
This proposal is unsquattable too. So
if you know what wallet they're using?
No, it's unsquattable at any given point, because the actual definition of an entity has a token ID separator.
Right.
It's just the recommendations here is that wallets don't show them in order to provide a better user experience, which is the first part I challenged in this discussion, because I couldn't see how multiple different wallets who make different ideas about things, when they remove and reduce this entropy from the naming, it opens up for some types of problem. But it's absolutely unsquattable in this proposal too.
I see. As long as you make sure to get the full name,
yeah.
And then that's where once you've got that full token ID, you're back to sharing addresses, and you've lost people again, right?
Why?
I mean, if you share a complete token ID, right? It's huge. It's a giant hash.
But if you can share it with the proposal I made, you never have to share the token ID. But one aspect that in my opinion is important is the wallet provider that is maintaining the registry can also alert a user if there is a problem with one of the identity. For example, this person has been hacked and it has been reported to the wallet provider, and now it can display an alert if you try to send funds to this identity that you already had added inside your wallet. Because otherwise, maybe it's no longer the same person. She has been hacked, and you don't know about it, and no one is going to tell you. So having a sort of feedback in the other way is also a nice feature, in my opinion.
So I want to talk a bit about these registries, because if we imagine that I have Paytaka wallet and I choose to have an identity that ends with like .paytaka, so that it gets grouped up in that domain, which means that I'm supposed to go to Paytaka to ask them in order to find this entity. Right? So if I tell my friend like I'm Jonathan at Paytaka or Jonathan.paytaka or whatever syntax used for this. Now, how does a wallet know from that where to find Paytaka?
Paytaka is if you shoot up john@paytaka.com, you go to paytaka.com. Now you can make a lookup, DNS lookup to get, for example, identity.paytaka.com. You get the full token ID stored in DNS. So that's the identity of Paytaka.
Right. So you're hooking into the DNS system at this point. Now,
at this point,
this comes with some disadvantages, like domain names lapse and expire. How do we manage like entire swaths of users suddenly losing control over their identities when someone else buys the domain name?
I see your point. They don't lose control of the identity because they still own the NFT, so they are in full control of the identity. They lose control of the pointer to the token ID that is managed by Paytaka. I see your point.
That's not necessarily entirely true, because you can do things like DMCA takedowns. You can attack domains by virtue of the legal arm of the state and take control over. You can issue copyright restrictions. You can claim that this is your brand. There are plenty of ways in which a domain could be lost. And this can even be griefed, even if you don't have all the rights to it. When things are like up in the legal air, there are consequences to it. And if you know that there is a popular wallet like Bitcoin.com that has, in this example, maybe it has like tens of millions of users who expect to be able to share their address and say, "Oh, I'm John at Bitcoin.com," and then there are problems with the DNS system. That causes a lot of problems for the users of the system.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I didn't thought about this this way. Maybe it will be better if the identity of the wallet's provider, so the wallets that use this system, are already baked inside each of the wallets. So my wallet, regardless of if it's Paytaka or not, knows that if you look john@paytaka.com, he has to use for paytaka.com this token ID. It's baked in the wallet, so there is no DNS involved. So that could be a solution.
All right, so Paytaka would have some kind of BCMR registry themselves to give you some of the information.
Correct.
Now, in terms
Correct.
of like scalability, if I imagine like hundreds of thousands of this kind of registries and they all have their own BCMR registries somewhere, would wallets have to kind of preload that information so they know how to fetch them? How do you deal with it when there's additions and removals to this data set?
Let me think.
So, I'm coming at this with a slightly negative viewpoint. I spent some time looking at it. This is nothing personal at all. In fact, I think there are some things here that are really, really good. But there are many, as I said earlier, there are many unanswered questions about how this would practically work.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm all for the brainstorming, and it's just a proposal. So I'm not attached to one particular detail, and I think it's necessary to have this kind of feedback. So no worries.
I will also say that given the goals that you set in the document, right, minimize harm and minimize danger to the people who are using it, like trying to prevent fraud and things like that, I don't have a better solution. I'll just make that clear. Like I have thought about this and things like this for a very long time. It's not an easy problem to solve. You can limit the scope. You can make your goals smaller. You can make them more like very, very targeted and find maybe solutions to those specific things. But that specific target is very, very wide and difficult to achieve.
Yeah, I do agree. I think to get back to your question about the scale, there is already, in my opinion, a scale issue with the BCMR system as it is today. So maybe it's more a different discussion on how do you query BCMR data in a way where you don't have to download megabyte over megabyte of data just to get one information, which is a problem in the current implementation. And by solving this, probably it's going to solve the other issue if there is many registries with millions of identities. How can you query just one with the proper proof to check it locally?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in BCMR, and I don't know
me neither.
what the scaling problems they might have, or if they are similar or not. What I can say though,
in the current version of BCMR, if you have one, for example, one NFT guru on your wallet, you have to download almost 3 megabytes of data just to get the information of one of the NFT. You have to get the whole collection, so it's a lot of data that you don't need. Right. And if we do this for every identity, for everything, it's just not going to work.
Can I give you a suggestion?
Yeah, sure.
So what you have right now in this proposal, as I said earlier, is a relatively complex system with quite a lot of different moving parts. Now, all of these parts don't need to be specifically designed just for each other and nothing else. You can actually take some of these things out and define them in isolation and just make sure that they are composable, they can work with each other, but that they also can work with other things. So when I look at this, the idea of using a BCMR registry in order to achieve mutability for your data, then that is something that can be done with a cash account just as well as it could be done with some other way to identify which BCMR register is it that I'm looking to import, right? So you can have this registry setup you have inside a wallet. Let's say Pitaka Wallet wants to have their own identity system. They can just as well use something like that for their own use, and that probably work as fine for them. But if we were to make how the BCMR part should look like, so that is well specified and is something that has been talked with a lot of different stakeholders, then that part can be reused. And if we do that, then I, for example, would probably be happy to jump on and say that, hey, this 9th payload or whatever that you can do with cache accounts is actually a BCMR registry pointer for version X of that specification protocol, which would allow you to use either cache account identifiers to find other users to have that discoverability, the SPV functionality, and this scalability that is at the trade-offs and costs that cache accounts do come with slightly more complicated, more numbers, things like that. But you can also have it in other systems. So if someone wants to build something better than cache accounts for the distribution and the lookup part, then they can do a separate system for that and just make it compatible.
And can a cache account link to a token ID? Is it upgradable to do that? Because today it's linking to an address.
One more time?
Can you upgrade cache account to link to a token ID instead of an address?
You can't change an already established cache account because cache accounts are immutable. Yeah. But when you register your first cache account, you choose which payloads you provide into that cache account. And what you can do is you can do something set like the first payload, the priority payload, is this BCMR registry according to this proposal 01.md tokenization standard for identities. And my fallback afterwards is this pay-to-script hash address that I'd like people who can't use the first identity system to use to send me if they really need to. And then a wallet that looks up this cache account name and gets those payloads, they will look at the first one and say, like, can I use this? Oh, I can use this, great. Then they look up the BCMR registry, and now if they want to, they can add it into the friend list or into recently used or in the address book. So they can do all
and when the wallet looks for the cache account, I'm guessing it's using an indexer for this.
The cache accounts doesn't need an indexer. They work in SPV mode, but they benefit from an indexer in terms of latency and bandwidth use. If you try to look up a cache account and you don't have an indexer, the cost is that you need to look up the full block. You need to download one block of data.
Okay.
But if you have an indexer, you can get the specific transaction and SPV proof from the indexer. You verify the SPV proof, and now you have everything you need.
Okay. I see. Yeah, in my opinion, it's not, if it's possible to use cache account also, maybe in parallel with a registry system, it's better to have many options because as today, we don't know which one is going to be the best anyway. Yeah, for sure. I think it's also a good solution to be able to register the link to your token ID with your own domain like example.com, because I have to get back to what you said earlier. It's using the DNS system, but this time it's your own domain for your own company, so it's not the same risk. And it will be a way to say, if you search for my identity, use gvis@kumalu.com, for example, which is my own domain.
You're right. Using your own domain for it means that all the responsibility falls on yourself. The risks are similar, but they're not the same. They're slightly smaller when it's a smaller scale. That said,
that could also
there are
allow
actually
you to manage
other lookup protocols in the BCH ecosystem that already uses domain names, so you can look up by domain name today. So if all you want to do is to look up by domain name to find something, then maybe there's another protocol already defined that you could piggyback on, so you don't have to convince wallets they have to adopt it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. I think, like you said, it's better to think of a system that is composable. In my opinion, the registry is one layer of the system. That's how I mentioned it in the document. It's one way to go from something you can say to the token ID, but the whole system with the identity, with the NFT, the business card, and so on, can work without this.
Yeah.
It's just less convenient.
All right. It feels like this conversation is mostly us me and Givers talking. Does anyone have anything they want to add? Are you still here, John?
Maybe we lost everyone.
Yeah, we might have.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's not an easy subject, for sure.
It's fine.
Yeah.
They're probably coming back really soon. Let me check in here.
Yeah,
they're just restarting. There's some issues. Let me see. Approve, John. Oh, 1, 2, 1, 2. Is it working now? Yeah. So some users can hear us, but John will probably come along soon. Yes,
yeah.
I hear you now.
And did you guys have this kind of discussion with some wallet provider to see what their view of the identity problem is?
Yeah, that's also a good point. Is that like we can sit here and think and come up with cool things, but actually user demand is probably the most important aspect of a system like this. When I originally made Cash Account, I thought I solved a somewhat difficult problem and that it was going to take off pretty nicely. But it turns out I had a very uphill battle, and like now it's several years later, and sure, there are definitely people using it, like new accounts are coming in every day, like in the hundreds, but it's still far from ubiquitous, and very few other wallets, at least here in the Western ecosphere, seems to support it. So yeah.
And did you get any feedback why they don't?
I talked with some users back and forth, and actually this mutability, like how do I update my data, is one big reason. The other is the privacy aspect. Like, okay, so I give up my name here to make it very human and easy friendly, and then suddenly everyone can just look on chain and see all my payments going back and forth, which is one of the reasons why Cash Account added the stealth and payment code versions of the payload, but wallet support for those ended up being even more iffy. So right now, a lot hinges on wallets creating very good user experiences, and I believe it's possible to make a wallet today that is really, really easy to use and doesn't do a bunch of this complicated technical stuff. Like you start it up and it says, hi, could you put a name on this wallet, please? And when you give it the name for the wallet, it just goes out and registers a Cash Account for you. And if we have a BCMR related standard for it, would be great if we could tie it in there. And then after that, whenever we want to send back and forth, it's like that simple username to know who's who, and not having like asking users to even know what a Cash Account is. Just type in whatever your friend told you and it'll work.
And how, with Cash Account, how do you handle the typos? For example, if I register GVs 100, and let's say I'm becoming very popular, and I have interaction with other users,
right?
And you register GVs 1000, so 1 or 0, and obviously a few users are
I'll
going
answer.
to make
I'll answer.
mistakes.
I know exactly the question. So
Yeah,
what you're
sure.
saying here is that since cache accounts are unique per the block they are in, if two users with the same name register in the same block, then they don't have any unique identifiers. And the way cache accounts solve that is that they have a collision hash.
It's not the same name.
Yeah. Well,
but it's not here. It's not the same name. I have added one more zero. You registered GVs 1000, not I have GVs 100, and you registered GVs 1000.
The number is not part of the name. The number is given to you when the block is confirmed.
Okay.
So you can't choose your own number when you try to register a cache account. You choose your name, the first part, and then you get a number that indicates which block it was stored in. And then if more than one person typed the same name and got it into the same block, what happens is that both of them get what's called a collision hash, a long string of numbers, a very long string of numbers. And we show only as many numbers are needed to disambiguate the two, which in the normal case for two registrations at the same time ends up being a single number, or maybe two if you're really unlucky. There's a section at the bottom of the cache account specification that goes through what this actually means, what the cost is to grief this number, if you want to grief it, and some other special
So what will be the cost for me to brute force the system with many transactions to register GVs 1000? If the 1000 is depending on the block, can I do this?
No, you can't register GVs 1000 anymore. 1000 is in the past.
Yeah, it's one example, but a very similar number with one digit different from the.
Yes. So there's actually
because I think
in the cache account specification there is actually a description of an attack vector for wallets that naively implement lookup by name, and who if you type in something that's very similar to someone else and it just gives you a drop down, you could have it so that you can't visually very quickly distinguish the two correctly, and that is one of the drawbacks. Now, there are some things in the cache account specification that addresses this or makes sure that it's not that big of a problem. One is that every account you make is awarded a random emoticon, a random image. Yeah. And that image is not programmatically random. It's designed to be visually different. It's from a list of 100. So you have 1% chance to have a conflict with someone else. But as it turns out, in practice, rarely anyone ever gets a conflict between names in the first place, and getting a conflict between name and this image at the same time is ridiculously rare. And if that happens and you don't like it, you can just register a new account and use that one instead.
Yeah, now you have to have the user be aware of what the correct emoji is for the username he's looking for.
Yes, so when I share my cache account name, I usually just say Jonathan100 because there are no other Jonathan100s. But if I wanted to make sure that a user didn't get wrong between Jonathan100 and Jonathan1000, I'd say my correct name is Jonathan100. It has a Jinjang emoji. And anyone who pops in 100 will get a Jinjang emoji. If you pop in 1000, I don't think it exists, but if it had existed, maybe it was a turtle or pie or whatever, something else. Very unlikely to be the same one.
Yeah. I see.
John, are you here? Is your mic working?
I don't hear anything from.
Yeah, I mean, neither.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna rejoin.
How about now?
And I hear me now. That works just fine.
Much better.
Oh my god, I don't know what happened. Thank you. I had a totally different area to ask about, because you guys covered all those. I appreciate that. That was very nice. I don't know. I love hearing about this stuff because I think it's interesting, an unsolved problem, and I've seen so many custodial setups, right, where they're like, oh, here's an identity system that uses crypto, and it's like, wait, this is completely custodial. What's going on here, you know? Or it's like, oh, you get a token, but then your token is related to whoever currently owns the domain. So you're like, okay, so actually the domain owner is the one who really owns this identity and so forth. So yeah, I love hearing about these non-custodial identities. I wanted to ask a tangent, very related question. At the beginning, Giviz, you said maybe you would create a registry where you put some information in it about the identity. And this reminds me about the cache ID system. I'm not sure if that's the intention, but I wanted to ask Jonathan to explain, because we've discussed in the past, maybe you want to share certain information with people, but not with other people, but you want it to be part of your digital identity, right? You don't want to have to fill in forms and fill in silly stuff when you've already have that information available. How does that work with the digital identity to be able to provide, I only give you what I want to give you. You don't get to see anything about me that I don't want you to see. And I can show you what I want efficiently with a provable digital identity. Like how does that work where you can have private information available and share it without, publicly making it available to everyone?
Are you asking
You're asking
me or
Jonathan?
are you asking Giviz?
Yeah, Jonathan, I was just saying that Giviz mentioned that there might be something like that, but I know, Jonathan, you've thought about this a lot.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if you could explain how that kind of thing would work.
Yeah, so I built a system that can do most of what you described, but it's on an authentication basis, not on an identity basis. So I can go through and explain that, but if Giviz has thoughts on the matter, I'd actually like to hear them first.
But in my opinion, it depends. If you already have a link with the other identity, you can just encrypt the part of your private identity you want to send in and just send over, and they have to decrypt it in their wallet, which will be automatic in the background. And now they have your new data. For me, it will be the most straightforward system, where you just select, I want to share my phone number. We already have connected our identity inside our wallet, and now my wallet, show me your phone number, and that's about it. Okay, with the messaging system that is encrypted.
Okay, so for people who are listening, I think that would mean, the wallet and the bank or the DEX or whatever it is that you're talking to, and they want to know some information. Your wallet would have that information, and it wouldn't reveal it to anybody until you said, encrypt it and share it with these guys. And then you could, just share whatever piece of information you want to share and nothing else. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, you will encrypt it with their public key, and only them can read it. So you use just a message bus to transfer it, and it's appear in their wallet and update your identity with the new information.
Right. Okay. All right. Is that the same concept, Jonathan, or is there anything different here?
Well, the difference is where and how the encryption would happen if you want to make a comparison to cache ID. So it's perfectly valid the way it's described by Giviz to just share some of the information. The only thing I want to make like a real good point of here is that you should never share encrypted information like sent as transactions on a blockchain. And that was not necessarily suggested here either. I'm just pointing it out because once you put an encrypted payload in an immutable public space, you're giving attackers unlimited time unlimited time to work on that problem, so to speak. For reference, so the solution that John kind of asked me to talk about with Cache ID is an authentication system rather than an identity system. What it would do is that it would make like a key pair or multiple key pair, depending on how you configure your wallet, that they would consider to be proof that I am the same person as the last time I talked with you. So the first time you interact with some service, you would provide one public key, and the next time you go there, you provide the same public key. And in both of these cases, you also sign with that key pair so that no one else can imitate. So what's different about Cache ID versus many other schemes like it is that it was designed to not only authenticate, but also provide information and reduce friction in things like sign-up forms or logins or whatnot. So I think it's easier to say this through an example. So imagine you're on a website and you want to sign up for the newsletter. Instead, like the common, the normal, the Web 2 way today is that they have a form somewhere where you type in your email, and maybe you get to type in your email twice to make sure you haven't misspelled anything, and then maybe you type a CAPTCHA to make sure that you're not a bot, and then maybe you sign a checkbox or two to say whether or not you agree to whatever thing you have. And that workflow is it's heavy for a user, like a lot of work for a user to do, and so it scares users away. Now, with Cache ID, you have a QR code or some other way to transfer a payload. This payload is simply a request string. It says that at this URL, you can submit an answer to this request I have. And in this request, I would like you to tell me who you authenticate as, like what's your key. And I also like to tell me what email you have, or maybe what first name you have, or what last name you have, or what other metadata this mail sending person might be interested in having. And the user's wallet would like scan this QR code or touch with an NFC or whatever, and they'll get a pop-up on their wallet that says, would you like to sign up for this newsletter? If you do, I'm going to send your first name, I'm going to send your email, I'm going to send how old you are, for example. And if you say yes, then your wallet under the hood contacts that domain name on the URL specified with a payload like, I want to do all these things. Here is my actual metadata, and here's the signature that I am me. If you want to register for a service, you go to a website. Instead of having a register and a login as two separate things, you just have a QR code. You scan it, and if you're not already registered, you just say, I'm sharing this data, and yes, I am me. And when you want to log in, you scan the QR code, and any data that you've already shared with the same service would be marked in this wallet as gray. You can't change it because they already know this data, so you can't tell them that it's different. And that'd be how to log in and how to make that situation efficient.
Yeah, I see. I think the system to use here is really dependent on the use case. If you want to log into a website, or if you want to share part of your identity with someone or on your contact list, the way you would do it is a bit different. Your system makes sense to log in a website or subscribe to a newsletter, for example. It will be less convenient if you want to send me, for example, your address, your physical address, I mean. You just want to go to your wallet and say, yeah, I want GVs to have my address.
Yeah, so sharing with a contact in your contact list can't use this protocol because it requires a server that validates and responds on the other side. I'm just sharing how Cache ID works because Jan brought it up. But was there anything in particular you wanted to talk about with the Jan?
Yes, just how. Okay, yes. So another angle of it. Okay, yes, I have two answers to that. Yes, I just want to know how you put all these together, right? The way that you described it, the way Cache ID works, the way that Giviz is describing it. They're obviously very closely related, but they don't seem to work together. So what is it that would be a kind of universal solution to providing information? That's one question. But another one that I wanted to ask is, we may at some point, people in the audience or somebody listening may have the question, which I have heard often when I talk about this to non-crypto people. They're like, hey, wait a minute, we already have PGP and GPG. We already have all these digital identity systems that have been around since like the 1970s or 80s. Why are you reinventing the wheel? Could you speak just shortly to
Yeah, I can speak
why
about
this
the
is different
second
from
there,
those.
but I can't speak so much about the first one. So I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, the second one is the first one I wanted to ask. Yeah.
Yeah. So the mechanics behind this cache ID protocol is not new, right? Just signing a payload and having a request that you sign. That's not new at all. I took the inspiration from BitID. BitID took their inspiration from Squirrel. Squirrel took their inspiration from some stuff at the university at some point. It goes back all the way to the 1980s. Nothing new. Now, the reason why these things haven't taken off is many. For one, users lose their data. So when you use something like GPG, or when you do something else, if they only function as your identity and you only use them rarely, they are going to get lost. People will forget about them. They will reformat their hard drive. They will update to a new phone to forget to back up and move things over. These keys behind these things get lost frequently. Another reason is that the benefit of using these things is only a security improvement. And the one who benefits from improved security is the user, which means that no service in the world has an actual incentive to build a better system. For them, what scares the least users away is what they want to do. So for a very long time, it's been email and password. And then came sign in by Facebook, essentially. I'm making broad terms here, but essentially that's kind of still where we are. Sign in by someone else, some trusted third party. Now, there is a sector that has these incentives, and that is banks and the state. And in many places around the world, at least where I live, we have national or digital or bank IDs, which actually do use these keys, and they do use these challenge forms, but they're only for managing your payments, your taxes, your bank accounts, the things where if something goes wrong, they actually have a cost to it. So they have a very strong incentive to make sure that it works right. And you started using it more frequently than some rarely used identity that only works in a few places. Now, from my viewpoint, right, I wasn't there when Squirrel came around, but I would probably have been ecstatic about actually getting rid of passwords back then. And then I would have been frustrated that no one adopted it. My time came later. I came during the BitID era when people had Bitcoin wallets and someone said, hey, let's take the Squirrel thing, but instead of using the regular keys they have, let's use our wallet keys in our wallet. Because you know why? People don't lose their wallet keys as often because it's actually important to them. And that solves one of those problems. Now, that didn't take off either. BitID is ridiculously rare. You can barely find any place that uses it today. And the reason for it is, well, sure, you don't lose your stuff anymore as a user, but the service providers still have no actual reason to implement it, right? They have no competitive advantage from spending more resources on building something that is going to be different from what the user expects, and that will only give users more security. And that is why I started making Cache ID, because I thought by adding metadata and supporting actual workflows that would make it better and easier for users to get going, that it would have a chance of actually like removing usernames and passwords from the ecosystem. But that has also kind of failed. It's a project on the side. It's there. It's a full specification. There's an example app. You can use it if you want to. I think something like 4 or 5 websites in the world uses it. Not enough to actually constitute success.
But there's a couple of important ones though. There's Bitcoin Cash Research, I believe, where you can fully make an account like without needing to provide email or anything, right?
Yeah.
That's one. And so that's an important site, a very important service. And part of the reason for that, and one of the values that a decentralized ecosystem gets from it, is that if you had a site where everybody has one of these IDs, like a digital ID in there, maybe they also have an email, but their primary ID is this digital ID, then that site becomes to a large degree, decentralizable. You can just copy the database and send it around because you don't have people's passwords.
Yeah.
You can just send the database, like duplicate it. And if if the site gets taken down, it's okay. It's right there. All the identities are there, and you don't need to store the passwords because it goes through a challenge authentication setup instead of needing to, have a password recorded. So there's some benefits there, although it's very kind of, it's not a benefit people would care about to hear. So it's along the lines of increased security. But then there's also cache rain, which it seems someone has used on this space. And so thank you for that. And for some reason, they didn't implement Cache ID, right? They did exactly the same thing as Cache ID, but in some tweaked way that made it work only with Bitcoin.com wallet. It was really weird. But I think that's a fair thing to say that that's basically Cache ID. And it's quite useful, right? Because you can just have your wallet connected, and they're a money handling service. So it makes a lot of sense to just combine the two and say, when you're dealing with money, well, there's also a digital ID here. There should be. It's a reasonable expectation. So it works well for that side as well. Is that correct? Am I wrong there?
No, it's correct, except you kind of put a little too much value on the site. Like Bitcoin Cash Research and Cache Rain, they might be somewhat popular in the BCH ecosystem, but like global and worldwide and outside of BCH, they are sites no one cares about.
Sure. But I just wanted to say that they are actually in use and have anybody can go to those sites and actually use them. So you can actually try it out. It's not just on a demo somewhere.
Yeah, so, at some point in some future, I'll end up having time and like energy back to actually build my wallet. And when I do, I will absolutely implement Cache ID or something very, very similar at that time. And then if people want to use it, they're free to use it. But I'm not going to push that part of it because I think there are other things that are more valuable at this time.
Somebody send what's your cash account? It's Jonathan
hashtag 100.
Jonathan hashtag. Somebody send 1,000 BCH to Jonathan hashtag 100 so that Jonathan can grow more arms and get more things done. I'd really appreciate if somebody does that.
Yeah.
Because I actually think he would do that.
Look.
He would actually use it.
I don't think it's going to happen, but just in case, I'm just going to say it. If I do get 1,000 BCH, I'm hiring people and I'm getting them to build the things I want to have.
Nice. So back to the first question that I was asked in reverse order. What is kind of a global solution to all of these, like being able to send encrypted data and that kind of stuff? Is there some kind of way to put these together, or is that like a nonsensical question? Or
I think here Jonathan made a good point that it's important that, for example, you don't use something like PGP because users are going to lose it all the time. And it's also the way we thought about it with the messaging system, where you actually use private keys from the mnemonic to encrypt the message. So the only thing the user has to do is protect the mnemonic. And if you add other steps here, like now you have a PGP key and now you have something else and so on, it's going to be very messy, very fast. So you don't have, it's important that the user has only one thing to really back up and worry about.
Yeah, from a keeping your account, key, identity, whatever, from being lost or broken, the only real answer is use it daily, use it frequently. Let me just walk through a world that you could have been living in now if more resources have been poured into it. So, like, imagine you wake up in the morning and you get your breakfast and it's time to go to work. So you leave your house, and when you do, the door closes behind you, and it's now locked in such a way that for you to unlock it, all you need to do is tap your phone, right? Tap your phone. Your phone is your key. And you walk over to the bus station, and here comes the bus. And when you go on, you don't bring up your bus card or fare ticket or whatever. You tap your phone, and it will prove with a receipt through a request made through Cash ID that yes, you have indeed bought like a yearly ticket, like a yearly something. And then you get to work, and at the door of the office, you hold up your phone. And what happens? It authenticates you, and it verifies that, yes, you are indeed someone who's working in this building, and therefore you will be let in. And on your way back home, you go to the gym, the bar, whatever, say bar first, spend some money, same wallet, same thing. You touch or you scan, and that part gets done. And then you go to the gym, and you prove your gym membership just the same way. You just tap your phone, all good. Now, you get home, and the day after, when you leave for work, you forget your phone on the bus. Right? You wake up like normal, you eat like normal, you get on the bus and you show your phone and so on. But when you get off the bus, you realize, oh shit, I lost my phone. Well, you go to your office, you knock on the door, and someone is going to look at you very weirdly, wondering why it's not letting you in. And they will look and say, oh yeah, I know you because I've seen you 1,000 times because you work here. And you go up to your boss and say, sorry, I lost my phone. And you have a backup key somewhere, but it's not there for now. And they just issue you something temporary so you can go about your day. And then when you get back home, you just take out an entirely new phone that you bought on your way home or something, and you go pick up your backup, you restore your backup, and you're back in order. By using this so frequently, you will not accidentally lose your key. That key is going to be valuable to you, so valuable that you will take care of it.
I completely agree with you. So I still have one question here. So you restore your phone with the mnemonic you have in your safe. How do you restore all the other data that are not part of the mnemonic? For example, all the identity you had in your previous phone, all your life, so to speak, that you had inside your wallet. Where is that part backup, and how is it secure? Because it's something we also have to think about. Most people have multiple devices, and
that question is a very open-ended one. I'll start there, and say that some data, maybe like how old you are or what your last name is, are things that after you recover, you can just fill it in again because you know this data, or you can take up your ID card and fill it from there if you still have an ID card. But that's not most information. Most information is going to be on things like the receipt when you bought something. Well, if you paid with a payment protocol, then you could have communicated what address they should send the receipt to, and the receipt can be sent to your actual address. Like it could be an on-chain receipt, like a token or whatever that contains the data, or it contains a reference, a link to the data outside of you don't want to store the actual data because that might be too much. But if you look,
how do you restore the identities, for example, all your friends?
Yeah, hang on, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. So take the case when you go to your office and you get hired for the first time, right? So they give you a challenge request and say, please touch the phone here. And when you do, you actually share payment information for your salary. You share identity information about who you are. You share contact information of how they can reach you when they need you. Right? The things they ask for all get shared in one step, no forms. In this, they just respond back and they send you their office token. They send you work at General Protocols. Here's our agreement that you work. Here's a hash of that agreement. Now, when your wallet recover from Anonymous or whatever other entropy issues, I don't agree with Anonymous at the best one, it will look on-chain and it will find a token having been sent to it. And that token can be a reference to a BCMR chain that contains the metadata about what to get in further information. There are many ways to provide some of this information in a recoverable way. That said, I don't actually have a definitive answer. This is just me blurbing on like what comes to my mind.
Yeah, I agree. There is part of the information you can recover because you know it, or you can get it back from on-chain. Some information, for example, you've added 10 friends they told you their usernames or cash accounts, you did them into your wallet. Now, if you cannot recover this, it's kind of a pain. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. You did not lose your identity or your money, but you are kind of out of sync now. And if you have multiple devices, it's something you will have to think about on a daily basis. I added you on my phone. I have to add you your identity also on my computer and my other phone. And I was thinking about a way to sync all of this information. But obviously now there is the centralization and privacy and so on. And it, in a way, it ties in the messaging system we talked 20 minutes ago about to send part of your identity. Maybe there is a way to store part of your information somewhere, managed by whom, I don't know yet, and be able to sync all your device with this and restore it if you have to restore a new device, but in a secure way that only you can decipher with your mnemonic.
Yeah, it's a difficult problem. I don't have a definitive solution. I'll just circle back to the very beginning of the space though and say that, hey, what I like your business card transactions, because a reverse business card transaction allows you to establish a relation. So when you go to your office or when you buy that bus fare ticket for a year, if they send you a reverse business card transaction that essentially tells them you are a customer of us, then your wallet can learn where to get the information, and you have a counterparty to talk with who can help you recover.
Yeah, you will have partial recovery with a system like this. You will lose some data that is not on-chain, because it's like you added a friend in your contact list, and you can restore partial.
The information about what bus fare ticket you got, was it for 1 year, was it for 3 months, was it for a grown-up, or was it for a kid? Right? That information, the custodian of that information, the one who actually drives the buses or the company that drives those buses, they have that information. And you have a receipt that you bought something from them, and they could trivially implement a recover from service where they, when you buy one and they send you the receipt, it includes a recovery domain, and they take responsibility for keeping that domain up, and you can recover all the information about your purchase that way if you're able to sign for and say, yes, I prove that I'm the one who purchased this thing, which your wallet can do from recovery.
In a way, with that system, you ask every merchant to have this kind of system to be able to recover.
Yeah.
If you had a place where you can bake up and sync your device, like we all have today, when we sync with, I don't know, like your password manager is probably synced between all your devices. You can restore a new device on your own in a few minutes.
Yeah. So there's actually a different set of information that's even harder to deal with. And that is when you don't have anyone that has custody. For example, if you're doing peer-to-peer hedge contracts, then it's in order to recover like what contracts you have that are open right now, you need to have the parameters for those contracts. And it's not very easy because you don't want to share these parameters with anyone, you just want to have them yourself. So that is one of those cases where, yeah, I don't have a solution today.
But if you had a place to store them, you could encrypt this information, like your whole wallet configuration, including your friends and the any age parameters. You could encrypt all of this and store it.
You can do stateful backups. Yeah, you can do stateful encrypted backups to your own local devices. Like, for example, every time you come home in the evening and you unlock your door to go in, that could initialize a transfer of the current state, and you can have a server at home that no one but you has access to and isn't connected to the internet. And in order to restore, you have to actually go into the physical device and restore from it with a cable or something. But expecting everyone to have a server is hard. And if you put an encrypted piece of data in some other person's custody, you're opening yourself up to risk. And what's worse is that this is a highly centralizing feature, like being able to orient your entire life around a public-private key pair and give it all this authority, like all these multiple different locks, different services, different relations, things like that. It becomes very, very attractive for people to break the encryption of that. So at least personally, I would not want to put an encrypted copy with someone else's custody.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. In another way, I think for most users, you expect the data to flow between your devices and not have to input the same data all the time.
Yeah.
So there is to be a way to do this, but I agree with you. To store everything in the hand of someone else is probably not the good solution.
That's ironic that at the point where you actually have to start providing your data repeatedly all the time, it actually becomes painless. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have covered a lot of ground. I personally enjoy listening to you guys talk about it because I always learn something new, and this is an enormously important topic. Being in control of your identity and not having to depend, as Jonathan said, on a bank or a state to be the owner of who you are. Or if you want to have multiple identities, I want to be this person online, I want to be this person in other contexts, that should really be up to you. And I love hearing about these and hearing how the future might be. I put a link in the Twitter thread, the X thread, I don't know what to call it anymore, about story time. And so the time mark is somewhere around 110. And Jonathan tells the story. This is one of my favorite stories, where he tells about how the world can be once we get this digital identity stuff sorted out. So yeah, just go if you want to listen to one really important part, you might want to just skip to that part and listen to it. So thank you guys very much. It was good to have you on again, Gibbies, and I hope everybody will have a good week. Hope you learned something from this. Jonathan, did you want to say anything before we wrap up?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
All right. Uname, I think I talked with him offline, but Uname, was there anything you wanted to throw out there?
No, that was a good listen.
Yeah, me too. I enjoyed it. Gibbies?
No, thank you for the feedback. That was interesting.
All right, cool. All right, well, take care, and everybody have a good week. Maybe we'll see you again, similar time next week.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye.